Carl Jung said, the most important question we can ask ourselves is, what myth are we living? That really kind of resonated with me a lot. I've been thinking about it, and I really do think that, at least for me, really from our teens to whenever, probably usually mid to early 40s to late 40s or 50s. It depends on really the person and their story. Spirituality isn't really that big of a deal to us. You know, we might be taught to be a Christian or whatever religion we were raised in. And yeah, we kind of hold on to those truths and those tenets, but we don't really understand the wisdom. I've said it before, I really do think knowledge is being able to read and memorize something like the Bible or some religious texts, the Tao. But wisdom is being able to understand the meaning within those words. Because I'd read and was taught the Bible from a very young age. And I knew all the stories, and I knew, quite a bit about it. I tried to read the verses myself quite a few times, but my mind just doesn't work the way where, first of all, I'm a slow learner, I'm a slow thinker. So the words would just kind of be a jumble in my head and not really mean anything. They were just kind of there. It wasn't until really close to maybe a few years before my awakening do they really start to make sense to me. And by my awakening, I mean when God came to me and I was reborn, transformed within the matter of an hour. From being miserable, pitying myself, spiteful at the world, to absolute unconditional love and compassion and empathy for everyone that was put in my path. I even try to be like that to my enemies now, which I don't really have any enemies anymore, but the people who I know are doing evil and I know are wrong, I feel sorry for them now. I still have love and compassion for them. I just hope that eventually, kind of like the Apostle Paul, I told the story in the Bible where he was helping capture, torture, and kill Christians before Christ came to him in spirit form. That can happen to anyone. You could be the worst person in the world, and Christ or God will come to you, and everything will change. Everything. Now, if you're the worst person in the world, then it's going to be a lot of weight on those shoulders. But that's a different subject. Anyway, what I was trying to say is, in our 20s, 30s, and usually into our 40s, spirituality still is something that we just don't take seriously. I think a lot of people who go to church, it's almost like a virtue signal. It's like, look at me, I'm so holy, I'm so great. And I think that was another thing, a lot of the apostles and especially Paul in the Bible wrote about, was these people. If I remember correctly, Matthew, and I don't know the verses or anything, but I remember Matthew writing about the people who just basically think it's a fad, like, oh, the popular people are worshiping Jesus, so that's what I'm going to say that I'm doing too. It's kind of like that. I guess, having Jesus in your life at least that much is better than nothing, but it's still just, they don't understand the true meaning behind Christianity. They don't understand God. They don't understand their spirituality. And unfortunately, some people are just never going to have a deep thought in their lives. They just are kind of empty people and surface level people. And those people, they have a purpose too. They have a purpose just like we do. So don't think any less of them. Don't take advice, especially spiritual advice from them. But really, spiritual advice is something that seeks you out more than you seek it out. Because if you, I was talking to one of my listeners, one of my people, and replying to one of their comments, and they were just talking about how everything in their life was just kind of not working. They tried so hard to connect with God. They tried so hard, and they really it just wasn't happening. Nothing was happening. They were getting no movement, no signs from God, no nothing. And I told them, listen, you have to, first of all, you might not be to the point where you are supposed to have your spiritual awakening. Your soul might not have suffered enough, or your body might not have suffered enough, your mind. You have to really be beat down. But the main thing is a spiritual awakening, which is an experience, at least, a spiritual experience, can happen at any time. That's not something that we can force, ever. And I think the more pressure we put on us to seek, the more pressure we're putting on ourselves to being like, this is it. I got to find God now, or it's now or never. No, that's not how it works. God tells you when it's time. He tells you, listen, you've been through enough, or you're ready to start on your journey towards your grand purpose. And that's what we're all here for. We're all here for our grand purpose. And nobody knows what it is except for you and God. And really, you don't know until God reveals it in you. All the wisdom that you will ever need to know is already inside of you, because you are already connected to God. I call it the Divine Wellspring. It's this place deep inside of us that is an eternal spring of God's light. And when we find it, we go there and we can be purified and just refreshed and reborn, and our faith renewed. And this is what a lot of my book is about, and it's still taking shape. I've written so much, hours and hours a night sometimes. But this Divine Wellspring is, you can think of it in any way that you want to. The way I see it is that Divine Wellspring. And it is hidden within our souls when we are young children and free and pure. And we have access to it anytime we want. And that's why children are so innocent and happy and uncorrupted by the world. But each time we are corrupted by something new in the world, it's another brick in the wall, as Pink Floyd would say. Another brick, another brick, another brick, until the demons have a fortress around the entrance to your Divine Wellspring. And it seems overwhelming trying to fight off a lifetime's worth of an army of demons that are guarding your light. It seems like that. God can obliterate that fortress in less than a snap of a fingers. Just a glance. But we can also start to deconstruct that wall. we can also start picking off that army one at a time. And that is through self-discovery. That is through spiritual discovery. We have to learn why we are afraid. What is making us afraid? Maybe you have social anxiety. Why? Why do you care what all those people may think about you when you go out, and maybe even just go to the grocery store could give you an anxiety attack, just being surrounded by all those people. They're staring at you. You know that they're just thinking like, wow, who's this freak? Who's this loser over here? You know, who is this guy? Nobody is thinking that. You know, the worst thing that could happen is maybe you have some toilet paper stuck to your shoe or something stupid like that. And that's just, you could just laugh it off. Why do you care what these people think about you is the main thing. I mean, nothing matters except for the ones that we hold dearest. And even then, if you have to change who you are to get them to accept you, then just don't do it. If they can't accept you for your truest, purest form, if they're so miserable in life, because a lot of times I've found this, if somebody is miserable and you have some sort of awakening and all of a sudden you're a new person and you're living a positive life and you're trying to live a life according to Jesus and God, and the people around you see this and they're like, it is really like an alcoholic who lost their drinking buddy, and they're like, whoa, we really don't want to be drinking alone, so let's just tempt this guy into coming back to our side. Tempt him into coming back and just pounding drinks with us and having a good old time, just wasting our lives away. It's just like that. And I've done a video on it a long time ago, but I was just like that. I would have friends who would get in trouble or, you know, just be at a crossroads in their life, and they would just go try to turn to the church or Jesus or whatever, or just even stop drinking. And we were like, come on now, what are you trying to prove? You don't want to stop having a good time with us. This is the best. This is the life right here. That's what the people who are miserable will do to you. They will try to keep you down in that hell, because at least in their hell they have company when you're there with them. But unless they understand that you can lift them up to your heaven and not be stuck in that hell, they're going to keep trying, or they're going to just keep on turning up the spite and the fear and the rage until either you have to move on from them in life, or they just finally give up and reach their tipping point too. And maybe they say, hey, maybe there is another way. Maybe I don't have to feel these fears and anxieties and this guilt and this shame all the time, because it does nothing for you. All of us sin. That Christianity is the best philosophy in so many ways, but the fact that they admit that every single one of us are sinners, we're all bad people in some aspects of our lives. We all give into that animal urge, that animal instinct that just brings us to these horrible places and leads us to jealousy and envy and pride and spite and all these, and all the 7 deadly sins and all of that. We're never going to escape those urges. That is deep in our DNA from whenever we began. And it's there for a reason, because if it was not there and you did not have to overcome that, just like I say with the struggles in life, you would learn nothing, you would get nowhere, you would evolve, you would devolve instead of evolve. It's like and I can't remember what it's from, but the story of the little boy, the little prince who was kept in the castle and only shown just the greatest things. I just heard somebody talking, I think it was the channel Spiritual Renaissance, I think. And he was talking about this boy, and so they kept him in the castle, and they just showed him nothing but the best in life. And one day he escapes the castle, and they're riding around, and he sees it. I think it was in India. And he sees a dead body on the side of the road, just laying there. He's like, "What is that?" And the driver was like, "Well, that's a dead body. They're gone." And like, what does that mean? He didn't know what death meant. He didn't know you died, because all the servants and everything they had, they just kept on hiring the young ones, and when they got a little too old, they would get rid of them and hire new, young, fit servants. They didn't know anything about death or aging or getting old and all of that stuff that really just tears our life into pieces sometimes. So he was sheltered from all this, and then he saw the reality of the world, and he was in shock. And that is how those of us, and I know most of you watching this, have struggled in so many different ways. We have a leg up, a head start on every single person who has been sheltered in any way in their lives in the race towards connecting with God. It's not a race, but we'll get there much easier than everyone else, because we've had it so much harder. We understand the brutal realities in life. They've been part of our lives. If we grew up poor, like so many of us did, or even lower middle class, where you're living paycheck to paycheck, or having to worry about money, and having to worry about keeping a roof over your head, having to worry about all the other things on top of all that, that gives you a new perspective on life, and to how to appreciate the little things that you do have and be so thankful for them. A rich person isn't thankful for their air conditioning until it finally goes out, but and then they have somebody come right in and fix it, and bam, they're barely without any comfort for more than maybe a day. Some people live in the South without air conditioning all the time. Not me, man. Look at me. I got my winter coat on all year long. I'm not living without that AC. You'd be seeing me move to Canada or Alaska or wherever in a heartbeat. I don't care. Get me in that cold weather, man. But anyway, that's the struggles that we go through in life. Give us a leg up, and we always talk about how all these people, and it is true. So you're dealt a hand of cards in the beginning of your life. Some people were dealt a royal flush. Some people were dealt some 2, 5, 8 offsuit, just random cards, like the worst hand you could have. That absolutely puts us a step behind in accomplishing things like starting a business and learning to manage money, or just getting ahead, because breaking out of the poverty is a very hard thing to do, because that's all you've been taught. But you know what? When it comes to spirituality, Jesus surrounded himself with the poor, with the weak, with the disabled, those who are downtrodden. And he said, the meek shall inherit the earth. That is, I've been thinking a lot about that, because as I've said in my other videos, you all watching this are my people. We are kindred spirits. We are in this journey, walking this path together. Now, a spiritual path is something that you have to walk alone much of the time. But you don't have to be alone. As much as possible, you let someone else be moral support, be a hand up for you. When you fall and someone is there to help you, let them help you. Don't just reject everything because you're so bitter with life. Let them help you. I needed so much help. And I really wasn't getting it. And so God had to come to me directly and say, hey, look, you didn't get the help when you needed it because I was showing you how hard it is to go through this without, and I'm not saying I had no help, I did, without much help at all. How lonely and how just scared you feel when you have no help going through things like a disability or some kind of crisis in life. You absolutely need people there to help you, and that is why I'm making these videos. That is my purpose. That is what I was put here to do, to help anyone who needs it. Anyone, but especially those who are downtrodden and those who really struggle in different ways in their lives. You know, you could be, I always talk about how, you know, beautiful people, you know, just don't have the same struggles in life, so you know it's much easier for them, so it'll be harder. Just like in that story I said about the prince who finally left the castle after living the perfect life. You're going to have a life that is much easier because you're a beautiful person, but you could have some sort of thing happening in your brain to where you think you're ugly. There's tons of beautiful women and men who think they're just hideous and they just hate themselves. And I knew a beautiful woman who just always thought she was so fat, and she just starved herself, and it was so sad. It really was. And those people have their own type of struggle, even though they're beautiful. So we can't judge a book by its cover for sure. We have to always, sorry about that, we always have to approach somebody with compassion and love, just like Christ tells us to. That is, I'm telling you, I don't try to convert people to Christianity, because I believe that connecting with God in the way that you find to do so, I really do believe that eventually it's going to lead to Christ anyway. Real quick, you look at somebody like Russell Brand. He was a very New Age, spiritual, you know, Buddhist type person, and that really all changed for him when he started having it harder and harder in life, because he'd had it so easy through his life. He went and he was addicted to drugs and everything, and he got through that, and that's when he found his spirituality. But recently he's been converting more and more into finding Christ more and more. And I saw him he got a tattoo of the cross, and he's wearing a cross necklace, and he was saying that the great thing about Christ is the salvation, and of course I'm just I don't remember his exact words, but the fact that we are reborn, that God sent Christ as his physical form in this life, and how we are reborn like he was when he rose again. And this Easter, we should all think about that. We should all strive to be reborn through Christ every day if you have to, as much as you need to. Find that wellspring inside of you and baptize yourself in the name of Christ, in the name of God. Any connection you can get there is a great start. But I'm telling you, the more you practice spirituality and the more you travel down that road and the more you study it and try to understand it, the closer it will bring you to Christ. But then again, I'm biased because I've loved Christ since I was a kid, and I just never truly understood the power that he held and the power that he had over all living things. Okay, happy Easter. God bless.